This week kind of flew by, even though it's all, of course, still action packed, full of work, full of news, full of depressing topics. I know. Maybe not everything, though. We still get to laugh, smile every once in a while. It's the only way that we stay sane. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys have everything in order. As I was just checking out the early nerds that have been here for a minute, wondering where the hell I am. Bro, I'm right here. And you know what? My Friday drink of choice is right here. Friday Beverages, just to send us into the weekend. Another monster, except they have like 100 different varieties now. So I don't have to go with the nasty bright green one. You know, that one seems toxic. But this one, on the other hand, that I have no idea what's in it, it's not so toxic. But still, you know, we're gonna make it through this Friday. It's not like I'm tired or anything, so it's not really fully necessary, but it's kind of become a thing now. So as you guys hang out, pile in, get to chatting, get to hanging out, see who's got the number one crown thing that I still haven't fully figured out when it comes to these chat windows. Have at it, you guys. Glad you guys are here. Lots going on. I might as well dive right into it since we're all here and you know we're all warmed up. As I mentioned in the title just a second ago, the stress is starting to build on these guys. Not starting to, it's been building on these guys, specifically when it comes to this Iran war with no entrance in sight, no exit in sight, no plan in the meantime, just bombing. That was the one plan. We've got tons of missiles. We got a $1 trillion military. Let's just kill people. That was actually the plan. But I want to show you guys how, because of the relentless pressure on the majority of the country who's against this endless, stupid, nonsensical war, because of it, man, I feel like there's some cracks that are beginning to form, like obvious ones. We knew they were there all the time because, you know, these guys are incompetent. But did you guys see Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary? Don't forget that's his position and what it is that he's about to be talking about. He was sitting down for an interview, I believe, with Sky News, and it got interrupted by Trump. Watch this.
I listened to you on the.
The president wants you. Sorry, the president wants you right away.
Oh, okay. Okay. No problem at all. See you shortly, Mr. Secretary.
You have to work that in.
Mr. Secretary, I have to say, it's a first, I'm sure a last as well, that an interviewee's been pulled away to go to the Situation Room. How was the president? Was he stressed?
No, the president is in great spirits. The Iranian mission is proceeding well ahead of schedule, and you know I have to tell you, Wolf, that I've a teenager who's considering military service, and I could give this team my highest compliment, from President Trump to the head of the Joint Chiefs to the Secretary of War. I would say that I would trust my child's life in their hands.
That was weird, wasn't it? Like, am I the crazy one? Like, wasn't that weird? As the interviewer then pointed out, once Scott Bessent came back from hurriedly being taken off by Donald Trump because that handler said, "President wants you right away. He wants you right away. You better show up or else he's gonna whoop you." But as soon as he came back, it was odd. Like I point out, this is the Treasury Secretary. And for some reason, he came back talking about, maybe he was asking another question. Sky News made that edit. But he came back talking about the military, the Iran war, how wonderful this is. And most curiously, his fighting age teenage son, soon to be, I guess, and now he's thinking about joining up and trying to, you know, help Donald Trump's ego. And he trusts his life with these guys. I wonder if Scott Bessent's son trusts his life with these guys, because I guess Scott Bessent thinks that just because he trusts his life with this guy, that it all makes sense. This guy who's still trying to act like he's like a commander in chief, like he's strong. Donald Trump posted this last night and he said, "At military academy with my parents, Fred and Mary." Look at that weird, sorry, sumbitch on the right side with this cosplay looking outfit on. I'm not saying it was fake. I'm just saying he was at the military academy, he says. What is it you think Donald Trump is trying to convince people of with that post strategically sent and then reposted on the White House Twitter account and all that stuff and spread around by conservatives? What is it he's trying to accomplish there? As we see mounting pressure from the negative effects of this war, the large numbers of people here and around the world who are against it, the issues with the Strait of Hormuz, the rising gas prices, which are going up even further, the deaths that are happening, the threats that are potential on the homeland, all this stuff that we've been seeing all the bad news around, and also the bad news that has been hidden by Western media that's going on. It's all that's happening. Why do you think Donald Trump is posting a picture of himself from 1960 at some point in a military outfit with his parents? Because he wants stupid people to believe that he's a strong military leader, even though he's bragged before about how he avoided military service with fake lies that same Fred Trump helped him get by because he's got some strings that he pulled. Everything about this president is propaganda. And because everything about this president is propaganda, Pete Hegseth had another speech this morning where he got out ahead of the game before we got too much bad news about today's events. And he went straight for the most important thing on this, the president's mind.
Yet some in this crew, in the press, just can't stop. Allow me to make a few suggestions. People look up at the TV and they see banners, they see headlines. I used to be in that business, and I know that everything is written intentionally. For example, a banner or a headline, Mideast war intensifies, splashing on the screen the last couple of days, alongside visuals of civilian or energy targets that Iran has hit, because that's what they do. What should the banner read instead? How about Iran increasingly desperate? Because they are. They know it, and so do you, if it can be admitted. Or more fake news from CNN. Reports that the Trump administration underestimated the Iran war's impact on the Strait of Hormuz. Patently ridiculous, of course. For decades, Iran has threatened shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. This is always what they do, hold the strait hostage. CNN doesn't think we thought of that. It's a fundamentally unserious report. The sooner David Ellison takes over that network, the better. Another example of a fake headline that I saw yesterday, war widening. Here's a real headline for you for an actual patriotic press. How about Iran shrinking, going underground? You see, Iran's leaders are hiding in bunkers and moving into civilian areas. The only thing that is widening is our advantage.
Bro, I'm not sure if anyone has let Pete Hegseth know that nobody believes him. Nobody that watches him do this is intimidated by him, thinks that any of his points make any sense. But he starts part of this beginning of this press conference going straight after the media because of headlines. We're in the middle of a war where there's casualties stacking up, where there's civilians that they continue to bomb and kill. And this guy went straight to talking about replacement headlines for things that he doesn't like. How weak and ineffective can you be? How much of a whiny little baby can you be? I'm the Secretary of War, but I'm upset about CNN's headlines. I can't wait for this oligarch to take over this network so we can have more state-run TV. He said it openly. He said it out loud. He might as well just say, yes, we're fascists. He might as well do this clearly and cleanly as Elon Musk did on Inauguration Day when he tossed out the Heil Hitler sign. They're being pretty blatant about it. But this continued. There was a lot going on because he got asked some questions from that same, I guess, uncontrollable media about that girl's school that we bombed. He can't get away from it. Every time he's going to be asked about it, I'm going to play it because I want to keep seeing him squirm. I want to keep seeing him come up with these same excuses that don't make any sense. I guess that radical media asked too many questions about dead children.
Yep.
No, you. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Can you please provide some guidance? It's been 13 days in. Can you please provide some guidance, both of you, about the strike on the girls' school? There has been reporting that indicates that preliminary inquiry, even though it's ongoing, has determined that the airstrike was carried out by the United States. Given that there is another competing narrative that this was done intentionally, can you provide us with some guidance about whether this was the case? Secondly, we are also getting, we had heard yesterday from Energy Secretary Wright that said that the U.S. Navy would not be ready until the end of the month to provide escorts through the Strait of Hormuz. Is that an accurate assessment? And if so, can you tell us why? Thank you.
Well, with an issue on your first topic, an issue of such seriousness, we're not going to let reporting lead us or force our hand into indicating what happened in a particular situation, because the truth matters. So I can report that CENTCOM has designated an investigating officer to complete a command investigation. The command investigation will take as long as necessary to address all the matters surrounding this incident. And the investigating officer is from outside CENTCOM and is a general officer. But I will note to this group and to the world, there's only one entity in this conflict between us and Iran that never targets civilians.
We know that line. We know that line. We can finish it for you. I just want to say again, because the talking points that we're supposed to continue to repeat, that every MAGA Republican has been repeating, is that after we deny any responsibility, despite all the facts behind it, we're going to go back to saying, don't forget, Iran is the only group that targets civilians, as we currently target civilians. As the president of the United States also said, I can currently target civilians, even though they dispute all the things that they say it over and over again. But he's still talking about this investigation. And as you can see, he said it'll take as long as necessary. In other words, it's going to be kind of forever. Have we heard the conclusions of their investigations into their murder of American citizens in the streets during these ICE raids and invasions? We haven't seen the ends of those invasions and those investigations either. So he was asked a really quick follow-up, and he kind of bristled because he didn't really want to address this guy, but he was afraid that some people heard the question.
On that topic as well, right here.
United States,
thank you.
that strike, sir.
An investigation is an investigation. That's what it is. It doesn't mean anything other than
One more time.
that. On that topic as well, right here.
United States,
thank you.
that strike, sir.
An investigation is an investigation. That's what it is. It doesn't mean anything other than that.
He didn't like that, because the question that if you couldn't hear, because he was getting talked over from a bunch of reporters trying to get their questions in. Does an investigation mean that the United States did carry out that strike? It's a pretty simple question. Does it mean we carried out that strike? Because that's why you're investigating it. In other words, they're not investigating. He didn't want that question being asked, so he went back to talking about how an investigation is an investigation. And in this Department of War of fascism, what they don't do is investigations into their actions, because it'll make them look bad. Instead, this whole thing, I believe, was the total amount for this press conference this morning was like 36, 37 minutes. And instead, they transitioned from trying to avoid those types of things to more of the propaganda. It was pretty blatant. Like, it's not even good. Constant propaganda where, you start talking about who it is that you're fighting, and then you start, adding characterizations to them so that you can demean it, so that all the facts that we may find out, maybe they won't stick in people's brains.
Iran's leadership is in no better shape. Desperate and hiding, they've gone underground, cowering. That's what rats do. We know the new so-called not-so-supreme leader is wounded and likely disfigured. He put out a statement yesterday, a weak one, actually, but there was no voice and there was no video. It was a written statement. He called for unity. Apparently, killing tens of thousands of protesters is his kind of unity. Iran's leadership is in no better shape. Desperate and hiding, they've gone.
Isn't it weird? So first, they're hiding like rats. Well, if they're hiding, I mean, I don't think that changes whether or not they're hiding or not, but still, it's all characterization, it's all presentation, it's all propaganda. It's how these things operate, but also the childish connections to it as well. The not so supreme leader. Okay. What does that do as far as tactically? Like, in reality, what's happening on the ground? What's happening in the air? What's happening with the Strait of Hormuz? What's happening with our prices going up? Just curious. They think that there's enough people that have childlike brains, like the rest of these folks who are running the country, that he can say something like, they're like rats, and we're like, oh, I'm back on board. Forget the fact that gas prices are going up like crazy, along with everything else, which I'm going to get to in a second. But also, as long as I say not so supreme leader, people maybe won't be on board with the new guy that they put in place that we haven't even seen. We don't even know the state of his life right now. You can just say that. But that's not good enough for them. So one other thing, though, what they're concerned about and they're trying to keep hidden here is what the New York Times is also reporting. Because look, they weren't ready for this. They weren't planning it well. On February 18th, this is how long they were talking about. I mean, they were talking about years ago. But as far as when they actually moved into this, On February 18th, as President Trump weighed whether to launch these military attacks on Iran, Chris Wright, that energy secretary that I've been talking about recently, told an interviewer that he was not concerned that the looming war might disrupt oil supplies in the Middle East and wreak havoc in these energy markets. He said he was not concerned about it on February 18th, which means as what's happening is something that they weren't prepared for. What they were preparing for was snazzy little lines about not so supreme leader, and they're hiding like rats. And we have ultimate tactical powers. That's what they're preparing for. More. U.S. officials have had to adjust their plans on the fly, from hastily ordering the evacuation of embassies to developing policy proposals to reduce those gas prices that they didn't plan for. Odd how that works. They did, though, have a closed-door meeting, and Chris Murphy was one of the Democrats that was there, representative, I believe, from Kentucky, and he had a couple things to say about what it is that he heard in that closed-door briefing that they don't want anyone else to hear. Starting off here, Chris Murphy said, I was in this 2-hour briefing today. This is from the 10th, from earlier this week. A 2-hour briefing today on the Iran war. All the briefings are closed because Trump can't defend this war in public. He says, I obviously can't disclose classified info, but you deserve to know how incoherent and incomplete these plans are. Here he says, maybe the lead is that the war goals do not involve destroying Iran's nuclear weapons program. This is surprising, since Trump says over and over that this is a key goal. But then, of course, we already know that airstrikes can't wipe out their nuclear material. Another post from Murphy. Second, they confirmed regime change is also not on the list. So they're going to spend hundreds of billions of your taxpayer dollars, get a whole bunch of Americans killed, and a hardline regime, probably a more anti-American hardline regime, will still be in charge. He says, okay, so what are the goals? It seems primarily destroying lots of missiles and boats and drone factories. But the question that stumped them, what happens when you stop bombing and they start reproduction? They hinted at more bombing, which is, of course, an endless war. And lastly, Chris Murphy wraps up by saying, and on the Strait of Hormuz, they had no plan. Back to their plans on the Strait of Hormuz, and how on February 18th, they said it's going to be great. Again, they had no plan. I can't go into more detail about how Iran gums up the strait, but suffice it say, right now, they don't know how to get it safely back open. You can believe or not believe Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy, I believe, has been on the right side of a lot of these things, and is now reporting in those closed-door meetings they have no plan. So as we see all this going down, as we see Pete Hegseth talk about rats and not so supreme leaders, that those are the plans in place, and the things about doing something about it is absolutely not in place. More from the New York Times real quick on their lack of preparation now that we've heard from Chris Murphy. Here's a quote. I can't say that we anticipated necessarily that's exactly how they would react, but we knew it was a possibility. That's what Hegseth said at a news conference. He says, I think it was a demonstration of the desperation of the regime. You think so? So as he, again, boasts about, we won an unfair war. We're kicking them while they're down. We're going to fuck them up. When you go through all of that constantly, and then you have to admit, we didn't plan that they would do anything as far as stopping any flow of goods or control the Strait of Hormuz, which many people who know anything about the region, who they all fired, I guess, from the FBI when Kash Patel fired folks that are, specifically know about this region, and specifically Iran, right before we attacked them. I guess we needed those guys for them to understand that this would happen. But they didn't know that it would happen. Dummies. Fucking idiots. I can't believe this. Actually, you know what? I can completely believe it. We saw it coming down. We saw how these guys act. We saw them puffing their chest out and grabbing the edge of their shirts, and they're so proud of themselves. But instead of planning anything, instead of thinking, because they call people that think, elites, they avoided all that stuff. And instead they went to bombing because they're savage, bloodthirsty, murderous people. It's all they are. It's actually all that they are. And they think more of the same thing will get them out of this, but it's not going to work out that way. Especially, as I pointed out, because things are getting worse for them. Hopefully things will get better for us, though, because I'm going to go over the page, hit like on this here stream. Hope you guys are enjoying your Friday to the degree that you actually can, because I'm launching into a little bit more about how folks here at home are beginning to speak out I guess the news organizations are starting to ask them some questions. And these things don't sound like it's going all that well. Here's this guy from Florida, a described Trump voter, and how he feels about the effects of Donald Trump's war in Iran and how it's affecting things just after what? It's almost been 2 weeks now back at home. Here's Florida man.
President Trump in the last election, he promised to bring down prices. What do you make of that campaign promise?
He did vote. He said he'd have gas under $3, and now it's right at $5. And I mean, honestly, it's something that he stole from somewhere. And now we're at what, $5 a gallon? He's saying about for our safety, leave somebody alone. They won't bother you.
He said that the small increase in prices is for safety. I guess, one, do you feel more safe in this country right now? And two, is it worth the price of gas? Is that safety worth it?
A small increase on prices, it's over $1 more than what it was. It was almost at $2 and something cents. He was bragging the other day on news, 190 or 290 somewhere. It's $5.50 a gallon. We don't want off of hopes and dreams. And as far as being safe, this point in time, anybody can do anything. So as far as safety, he ain't doing nothing for my safety.
That sounds like a list of bad news from a former, maybe current, maybe future MAGA voter out there in Florida. His gas prices are up. He doesn't feel safe. Trump keeps bragging about $2 gas. What he's seeing damn near $5. What he doesn't understand is, how did we get here? How did this happen? But this is the second half of this little back and forth with this guy. I feel like it gets a little bit more stark because they started asking him about potential other choices and what he thinks could have been the state of this country if Donald Trump wasn't in power.
Is there anything else you want to say about the price of gas, about the cost of living, about the experience you're going through right now?
I would just wish he'd keep up on his campaign promise and say he was going to put it under $3. He'd end that war so fast. But here it is, 5 years later, helping his buddy out get his more money. And then never mind charging us Americans all sorts of money for fuel that you just stole from Venezuela.
Do you regret your vote right now?
Well, between him and her, I thought he was the better choice. But honestly, I miss my Uncle Joe. Because, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of craziness going on, but it was a whole lot calmer than this. It didn't affect my day-to-day life. I was a nobody, and I was balling then. Now, I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even show you $5 in my pocket. This whole thing's got a recession going on. I don't know if anybody else is seeing it, but I definitely see it firsthand.
Florida man is barely scraping together $5 to show you in his pocket. He misses Uncle Joe. He misses old man Joe. He misses the dementia Joe that they went on constantly about. I don't know. We don't necessarily miss Joe. Maybe we can hope for something better. Maybe we can hope for something better than these two guys. Just outside chance. I don't know. Maybe there's this thought where we don't have to be involved in all these things, and our taxpayer dollars actually go to us. It's weird. It's like politicians keep saying it, but then it never really happens. He misses his Uncle Joe. Wow. I don't know. From Florida man to Iowa man, because this guy's a little bit more serious. I mean, the first guy was serious. I don't want to discount his, the real nature of his life. But again, as far as this war goes, it affects a lot more than just guy from Florida. It also affects guy from Iowa, who happens to be a farmer with a gun over his shoulder, as you can see in the background.
Fertilizer, those that need to buy are hurting pretty bad because we've had this huge jump in fertilizer prices because of this conflict. And, with only about 30% of fertilizer coming through the Strait of Hormuz, if you divide that out per day, that's about 0.09% of the world's fertilizer coming through there. And even if the U.S. only uses 30% of that, which I think is probably a really high number, that's 0.03% and per day. So we've only been in conflict for nearly 12 days here. And our fertilizer costs have jumped nearly 77%, and our corn price has only gone up by 5%. So we've got some real challenges here ahead of us, fertilizer.
Talked a lot about farmers during the tariff situation that they were struggling through all throughout Trump's first year of this second term. I guess the whole war is also affecting them too, and not just energy and oil prices, but apparently fertilizer. There's a lot of things that go through this strait, and I think too many of us were ignorant about that, including Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, and the rest of these goons who started this war, who obviously had zero plans around this very simple reaction that could happen after they brag and boast about destroying an entire country and then saying, what are they going to do about it? It's weird that they're doing something about it and it hurts like everybody. That is, except for the people that they're allowing through there, though. Instead of all this, instead of addressing it and having a plan behind it, Pete Hegseth, again this morning in his press conference, maybe he can tell the farmers this as the excuse, as the reasons why their prices are going to go up, and therefore so will ours.
Iran has no air defenses. Iran has no air force. Iran has no navy. Their missiles, their missile launchers and drones being destroyed or shot out of the sky. Their missile volume is down 90%. Their one-way attack drones yesterday, down 95%. And as the world is seeing, they are exercising sheer desperation in the Straits of Hormuz. Something we're dealing with. We have been dealing with it and don't need to worry about it. We're on plan to defeat, destroy, disable all of their meaningful military capabilities at a pace the world has never seen before.
The well-articulated plan of the Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth is they're closing the Strait of Hormuz. They're disrupting all kinds of shipments. And our answer is, forget about it. What are you gonna do? Come on, it's just me, guys. That was literally what he said. He said, we've been dealing with it and we don't need to worry about it. I feel like people whose costs are going up from all their supplies to also, oil and energy and gas prices, I feel like they have to worry about it, even though your elitist, ass doesn't have to worry about it because you guys have stolen enough of our money where then you'll claim that everything is great. You're wondering, Americans would be all on board for this. I'm not sure why you guys are so upset about an extra $1 a gallon of gas. Let me show you guys what Chris Murphy said in response, though, because again, I mentioned his posts before, but again, he was in that closed door meeting and we can see, in case you were, thinking he was lying earlier, we can see based off what Pete Hegseth is saying, they really don't have any plans available as to how to get themselves out of the situation that they got themselves into.
I just came from a 2-hour closed door classified briefing on the war. It just confirmed to me it's totally incoherent. We are not going to be able to achieve any of our stated objectives. But I mention it because it's another closed door briefing. We have still not yet heard a full explanation as to why this is necessary. We still have had no hearings in front of Congress that the public can see. And I think that's pretty simple, because if the president did what the Constitution says, come to Congress to get authorization for this war, he wouldn't get it. Because the American people would demand that their member of Congress, their senator, whether they be a Republican or Democrat, vote no, because this is a disaster of epic proportions. It's already getting Americans killed. It's driving up prices here at home. Harder line leadership, more antithetical to U.S. interests, are strengthening inside Iran. And there's really no way that we're going to be able to destroy their nuclear program because most of it is buried underground unless we mount a ground invasion, which would be even more disastrous and more unpopular. This has just been a debacle, a 10-day debacle. And we're going to use whatever leverage we have in the Senate to try to prompt those hearings, to try to prompt that vote, and to get this administration to start paying attention to the Constitution. I
have an idea. I'm no senator. I'm no congressman. But I have an idea. Maybe there was one congressman who stepped up. I believe it was right at the beginning when Donald Trump came in. He was giving it wasn't even the State of the Union because it was when he first came in, but it was an address to Congress. And Representative Al Green stood up with a sign, stood up, got upset, stood up, got kicked out. And ever since then, he's been talking about we need to impeach this president. It was as soon as he got in. And I remember people making fun of him. I remember people talking about how Al Green is off his rocker. I can't believe he'd stand up, interrupt this dumbass fascist, and then demand impeachment. But I feel like he was kind of like onto something. And even though Democrats are the minority in both of these House and the Senate, these things need to be discussed, like officially on the floor. Someone needs to bring it up. I'm not sure if Al Green is still trying to, or if that was something he did at the moment. And I know it would fail, but this needs to be a discussion for people who maybe don't know that this is something that they could do. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's something they can't do. But I would think enough people should be bringing it up so that people can start talking how upset they are over this possibility of removing a president who's a fascist, who's attacking American citizens in the streets, who's launching wars against Iran, threatening Cuba, getting American soldiers killed, raising prices, forcing things like extreme measures of closing this strait, which is going to affect every other price as well. And as I said, more than just the fertilizer and the oil, but these farmers, man, they're getting upset. I wonder who they voted for. A little bit more on the information of that.
What's happening in the Strait of Hormuz isn't only affecting oil and gas prices. Farmers here in the U.S. are concerned about how high the price of fertilizer could get because of this disruption to trade. And according to a chief economist from Wolf Research, this could raise food at home inflation by around 2 percentage points. Let's bring in
It could affect. In other words, we're getting there. Again, similar to the tariffs, it's something that builds. It's something that, because there's reserves, there's all these types of things where people are these organizations, these entities, these farmers in this situation maybe have some stocked up or some available to a certain point. And when that point is reached, it's kind of over from there. And when it's something like fertilizer, it's not like it's one thing or another. There's so many different things, obviously, as you may know, that farmers may need to cultivate based off of this other commodity that's also getting blocked through this Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, this is going to affect everybody. And there's a couple ways that that's going to happen. For example, my farm, we're not going to be able to apply phosphate or phosphorus. And that potentially could lead to a decrease in yields. Now, if you look at that countrywide on everything, corn, soybeans, cotton, rice, all of that, if you start decreasing yields, what that does will increase price. And everybody knows that that increase in price amplifies as it goes to the grocery store. So it's going to be a train wreck for consumers. We got to do something about it. It's just plain got to stop. Yeah.
Maybe we should listen to him. More than just whatever you may assume it'll be, that'll be affected by this, but all of these things that they grow, all these things that they cultivate could be an issue. I feel like this is I always heard the survivalists and the folks who are like being off the grid. And it's not like I didn't take them seriously. I just figured maybe I don't need to go that direction. But all the people who were talking about, I'm gonna start growing my crops, I'm gonna start growing my own gardens and my own little miniature farms because this is about to hit the fan. I feel like they were on to something, except they've been doing it for years, and it's probably better anyway. Whatever it is they're putting in these crops to try and increase their yields is maybe something we don't need anyway. Maybe someone should talk to RFK Jr. about that. But you know what? Maybe if you have a little bit of space in the back, maybe you can grow a little corner garden because this is about to get bad. And no end in sight, and actually no plan ahead for that. It's like everyone knows it except for the people that are executing it. It's constant. It's on and on and on.
We're hearing quotes of prices being up since the war started about 15 to 25% over where they were before they started. It's going to affect our margins on our grain crops we grow, especially corn. At the current prices that we're hearing, maybe a 7 to 8 cents price increase or in the cost of producing corn. We're hearing
just a couple facts for us to see. So it makes you wonder. It actually made me wonder. There was a couple folks who were trying to defend this, still trying to let us know, the people that they're talking to, also about that we're all on board for this. Roger Marshall and Representative Mark Alford. You guys may have seen me show them this week. As we're seeing the degree to which this could get, as we're seeing to the degree that it already is, as we're hearing news about an extra 10 cents a gallon going up in a day or so, for fuel costs, this has been their response all week. I wonder what they're saying right now.
We are putting energy, resources, money into this, it is going to take a little bit of sacrifice on the part of Americans. There is a political component to this. We have the midterms coming up. The Democrats have tried to make it about affordability. That will certainly play into that. But I think the average American in my district understands the need that we decapitate this terrorist regime.
Because you described it as a hiccup, the gas prices and the change in the oil market that we're seeing.
So again, freedom is not free. Americans are going to have to make some sacrifices, but we're operating from a point of strength. But this is one of the prices of war. Are we willing to stand here for 47 years and let Iran beat the heck out of Americans and kill thousands of Americans?
Are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to pay more for these oil and energy costs? Are you all on board? Did Mark Alford talk to you guys about how you can't wait to spend more money on gas prices, as if we weren't already spending too much money on everything else in this country? It's like they're lying to us. But maybe this more hidden, I guess, commodity, this more hidden thing that's being blocked through the strait is something that may get them moving. I looked up and I saw something about helium. You guys know about helium? From CNBC. A prolonged conflict in the Middle East could impact the semiconductor industry's access to key materials, while rising costs could hit demand for chips that have been central to the artificial intelligence boom. AI, all the AI takeover, the fact that, this administration is using AI at a large scale, that they're trying to continue to muddy the waters and cloudy people's eyes between what's real and what's fake. They're going to need something that's getting blocked to continue that. More quotes. A prolonged regional conflict could potentially disrupt chip makers' manufacturing operations regarding sourcing materials like helium and bromine. This is what Ray Wang, who's a memory analyst at Semi-Analysis, said. For now, the impact appears to be limited. However, a prolonged conflict could eventually lead to disruptions or require adjustments in the sourcing of key materials. Again, like that helium, which would, of course, affect things like their AI production, their technology stuff. I had no idea this was a part of it. Now, I'm not in that field. Here's more. More than 25% of the world's helium supply would be taken off the market by an extended shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what Phil Kornbluth, who's the president of Kornbluth Helium Consulting, told CNBC. Who would have thought you'd get into the field of helium consulting? How did Phil Kornbluth get into helium consulting? He's got his own company and he's consulting about the situations with helium. Last quote here about something outside of fertilizer, oil, and gas. Qatar's state-owned Qatar Energy produces helium as a byproduct of liquefied natural gas, LNG. Qatar Energy's Ras Laffan industrial city was hit by an Iranian drone last week, taking that site offline. Kornbluth said, "It's getting hard to imagine that the world is not looking at a minimum 2 to 3 month shutdown of helium production and a 4 to 6 month period before the helium supply chain returns to normal." Like I said, I'm not in the field of producing these chips, these technological pieces that go into all this stuff that we make, but there's some raw materials that get shipped that come around, whatever form that it's in, and they're not going to be able to get to it if this continues. How is it that this United States of America, with its $1 trillion military and all the intelligence that it ignores on a regular basis, that maybe that's why, did not figure this out? Didn't know, but the folks who are jamming up and are blockading the Strait of Hormuz did know. And we went in there going, "We're going to fuck you up. You can't do anything about it." Yes, we understand. We've got the trillions and trillions of dollars worth of war machines, the ability to kill anyone we want indiscriminately is possible. And we've been doing that. But I guess what we're missing is the thought process behind it. Man, how's that anti-DEI policy going? Where you hire the best of the best. And from their idea, the best of the best is the dumbest, the most ignorant, the people who don't think, but as long as they're white, straight, Christian males, they're on board. How stupid is this country? It's embarrassing, bro. It could get worse than we even could imagine. But that's if we continue to go down this road. But last little story here. I got a few minutes. I think I'm going to get this in. Last bit here. So in order to sell this war, in order to sell what's going on in the Middle East, in order to sell the death and destruction that's happening, and also to hide some of that death and destruction that we don't want Americans to see. Apparently, we're children. Apparently, we're all about video games. And this is a video straight from the White House post on X. Like, it's not someone who manipulated this. It's not someone who changed it up and said, this is from the White House. This is from their page.
Holy what? 10. It's out of the park. 10. Knockout. Slam dunk.
Nothing sums up this administration like that. They're playing games with war. If you want to sell the war, compare it to Wii video games, Nintendo Wii games, because that's appealing to everyone. It's not the only thing they posted. It really isn't. Just in case that one didn't get enough like 7 to 10-year-olds' eyes available, and also hell bent on more war, maybe even signing up in the next 8 to 10 years from these guys. If not that, maybe this one will get you guys jazzed up again from the White House.
Strike to claim it. A strike to claim it. And he got it! Here comes the heat from the USA. Boom! Pins down. What a strike. That's right. Who do you think you are?
It's fun. It's fun. Video games, bowling alley graphics, the cheesy bowling alley graphics that you get whenever you either get a strike or mess up, and then they send the pins at you. Oh, now I'm on board. You know what, son? Now I think you should sign up to go and die in the Middle East for Donald Trump, because they posted stupid videos with Freebird playing behind it. By the way, when I repost this, I can't put Freebird behind it. They're going to get me on that. Maybe they should be gotten on using Freebird and, copyright restrictions and all that. Here's the last one I'm going to show you guys. I just really want to drive the point home. Sometimes maybe I go a little overboard, but I really want to show you guys. They think this is going to work. That's why Pete Hegseth has these press conferences like, every other day to try and promote and push propaganda so they can put it behind music and think this will work.
The mission is laser focused. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and facilities that produce them. Annihilate its navy and critical security infrastructure. And sever their pathway to nuclear weapons. Iran will never possess a nuclear bomb.
Boom, bang, explosions, fire, fury. That's the name. That's the planning. That's how much our money is going towards them creating these things to try and sell to people when no one is buying it. But when someone actually asks this guy a question about the thing that happens in war, outside of, all the bombing and explosions of enemy targets, when they start firing back and other things happen that they don't like happening, watch how quick the tough guy is ready to answer questions about casualties.
Right there, green jacket.
Mike Bress with the Washington Examiner. How many American casualties have there been, and where were the American service members when they were injured?
It's a bunch of return to duty. So we've had a whole the large majority have gone in for some medical treatment and returned to duty. We've had in Kuwait, Jordan, down across the southern flank a little bit, a variety of places, most from one-way attack strikes.
But I want to clarify that. I think what we've tried to do here is clarify those numbers rather than saying KIA or WIA wounded. Be more clear about that because the overwhelming majority, almost 90%, thank God, are returned to duty. Minor injuries returned to duty, and so that number can look a certain way, and our job is to add some fidelity to it. Right here, right there.
Pete Hegseth's first answer to a question about American casualties. How many there have been, and where were those service members when they were injured? He literally went, save me here. Please save me. And, I guess Kane saved him for a second, but then he came back and he finally had a thought in his head. He's like, we just want to make sure that you guys know. We make sure you guys know. Yes, people have been maimed, people have been injured, but we don't care about that. They just have some injuries, maybe some post-traumatic stress over their injuries. Maybe they watched, their friends and buddies die in front of them. It doesn't matter. They're only injured. That's all we're going to minimize that too. At what point do you think they're going to even get this idea in their head that they should start acting like they give a damn? They're not going to get there. They're too stupid for that. Remember, they're dumb. So since that's been the line, this is how he shows his heartfelt feelings towards some of those service members that were lost, some of those folks that are injured, which I believe we're looking at over 150, I think was the number that they gave the other day. But did you guys hear about, I believe it was 4 more service members, more military that was killed in an accidental accident where I believe it was a fueling jet that went down. Tough guy Pete Hegseth didn't have a jazzy video with AI graphics and Leonard Skinner playing behind it. Instead, this is all he could muster up.
War is hell. War is chaos. And as we saw yesterday with the tragic crash of our KC-135 tanker, bad things can happen. American heroes, all of them. And as I have with all of them, as we have, we will greet those heroes at Dover, and their sacrifice will only recommit us to the resolve of this mission. But war in this context and in pursuit of peace is necessary, which is why each day on bended knee, we continue to appeal to heaven, to Almighty God's providence, to watch over and give special skill and confidence to our leaders and to our warriors. To those warriors who this nation prays for every single day, I hear from all of you out there who pray for them every day. Stay on bended knee and pray for them. I continue to say to them, Godspeed. May the Lord bless you and keep keep going.
He says bad things can happen. That's his response to that. I believe it's a tanker or something. I believe it was a plane that went down. Bad things can happen, but they made sure that people knew that it wasn't like enemy fire, or even friendly fire, some form of an accident where someone else speculated they're trying to evade any kind of fire. And then accidents went down and more folks were killed. But don't worry, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, they claimed, as he pointed out, we're going to use their deaths to say we're going to fight more. We're going to use the memory of your sons and daughters, whoever it is that passed away. We're going to use their memory to say we're going to commit more people to die. Or maybe to kill other innocent folks. Who cares? We're murderous. That's what we do here. That's how they operate. It requires people to start to be afraid collectively. This is supposed to be a patriotic thing, as Pete Hegseth pointed out throughout that whole thing. The media has to be more patriotic, and being patriotic means being fascist. But when things get brought up again, like this school bombing, I can't get off of it. Senator Kristen Gillibrand asked a question in this hearing about that. It's spreading everywhere. They're sweating over it. They might as well just go ahead and admit it and do something about it. But instead, Senator Roger Wicker, jumped in and tried to, I guess he thought, help her out from telling the truth and maybe sugarcoat it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just to clarify for your benefit, Senator Gillibrand, you did not mean to say that we had targeted a school.
that a missile hit a school.
No, but it's the word targeting.
Yes,
that,
of course.
that you did not mean.
How we chose a target that turned out to be a school, albeit next to a appropriate target of a naval base. But the fact that it is chosen as a target, I'd like to know, and I hope that we can have an open hearing on this, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Ernst.
There will be no open hearings on anything. The investigation that Pete Hegseth says he's having isn't happening. And if it is, it's gonna, I maybe I'll be wrong, but I feel like it's gonna come up even if they do conclude it and say, it was totally nothing that happened. It was some kind of accident. Someone got a hold of our Tomahawk missile. Don't know how that happened. After they denied it was a Tomahawk missile in the first place, the story keeps changing. We know how that works. But I'm glad, at least for a little bit, Gillibrand pointed out, yeah, I mean, we targeted a school. Whether or not you want to say it was an accident or not, you can make that up later. But that doesn't change the fact that we targeted a school, and which one report or a couple of them said, based off of AI technology that told us, target that school because it doesn't think about human beings. It just thinks about killing people. There's AI that does that, and apparently there's also Republican and MAGA backers that say it too. Here's Brianna Lyman, and she's one of these panelists on CNN that like to argue. I generally don't watch. Actually, I never watched this show, but this particular moment stood out. Look at this sales job again on this bombing of this children's elementary school in Iran, and see if it makes any sense.
And there was a report in the New York Times, and they interviewed an engineer from Tehran, and what he said was interesting. He said that a lot of people in Tehran, in Iran, actually don't necessarily want the bombs to stop dropping, because if the bombs stop dropping, it means that the Iranian regime currently in place is still in place. And for them, they said, we are thought of as human shields for the Iranian regime. So we want this regime gone. So I actually think, of course, bombings are horrible, especially when they accidentally kill young girls. That is absolutely tragic and awful. But I do think the Iranian people see this as a risk calculation and are saying, look, if the choice is to live under the current Iranian regime, at least according to this guy in the New York Times.
Yes, one guy in the New York Times. In that same story, there were other people who were opposed to the regime, who had been opposed to the regime, but now feel pressure, basically are supporting the regime against the United States.
If they're supporting a suicide, right? And
I think trying to get a sense of where Iranians are.
And
Iranians love being bombed. Iranians love to have oil rain raining down on them. Iranians love to be carpet bombed. It's weird how suddenly MAGA conservatives who said, number one, we're not starting any of these new wars, is all about starting new wars, who are now all about killing children in schools because apparently the people of Iran are like, yes, kill more little children. That's freeing us. Like I said, the theme from this sales job for this war is Americans are this stupid. But again, maybe we are. We bought the fact that this guy wasn't a fascist when he was totally showing us that he's a fascist as he was running for office. So I guess we are that dumb. But the one person that might be a little dumber is the one Democrat in the Senate that voted, that didn't sign on to a letter. There was a letter that Democrats put forward that are demanding this investigation into this bombing of this children's school. The one Democrat that didn't vote for it or put his name on that letter is John Fetterman. So he tried to explain himself to Caitlin Collins.
Senate Democrat, except you signed a letter today to Secretary Hegseth asking for an investigation into that strike on a girls' school in Iran. Why did you not sign that letter, Senator?
Well, because we all agree that it's a tragedy having the school hit. Absolutely. And we all agreed now for an investigation. What I don't agree with the rest of my colleagues in the House is that it's a war of choice, or it's dumb, or all the things that my colleagues have described, this operation. I think it's a good thing, and I support that. So we agree that and actually the Pentagon is already investing in that. They just acknowledged then that it seems increasingly likely that we were now on that, and now I think it's entirely appropriate. Just like my colleague from Louisiana said, it's like we should apologize. That's a tragedy, and I would remind everybody listening right now: the United States never ever targets civilians. Iran does, and including their own citizens, and they massacred 35,000 of them just a couple of weeks ago.
Completely unsurprising that John Fetterman is pushing the same lines that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and the rest of the MAGA administration is pushing. That don't forget. I mean, we may have seen that we bombed this children's school and killed a bunch of kids, but remember, Iran is the one who does that. Bro, you just admitted that we do that, and we're currently doing it in more and more of it. Hospitals, residential buildings, backing up Israel in their bombing campaign of Gaza, killing all those civilians. It's weird how that, works out that way. But he wouldn't sign on to this letter. And I feel like he was feeling the same kind of pressure that Pete Hegseth and them are feeling. So he got a little bit bristly when the questions were asked.
And the left, Emma, please, the left media is much more angry, about or talking about this hospital, and it is a tragedy. But they didn't seem to be as concerned about the Iranians massacring tens of thousands of their young people just a couple weeks ago too. So we agree on many parts of it, but we both disagree. I mean, we all disagree that I think it's a good thing, and every single other Democrat in the caucus calls it all kinds of in negative terms.
We did cover the protest in Iran extensively here at CNN. Obviously, they said a lot about how internally people felt about the regime. But
I
just
don't
to be
watch,
clear,
so I don't know,
you do
but I'm
believe
talking
if
about
the
other
United
left media, and I didn't find you as.
I understand. I just wanted to make that clear to our viewers that we did cover that.
And I don't know what your network talked about, but what I'm saying that whether like it's the New York Times, they're making it more and more, trying to convince America that this has been a disaster or things are out of control, and that's just categorically not true on that.
What's that based on? Why is it categorically untrue that this is a disaster? Outside the fact that we can see right in front of our faces every time Pete Hegseth goes on a new propaganda push and Donald Trump confuses his talking points or lies every other day, I think we can see it from that. But you see this? It went from the talking point about Iranians are the only ones who kill civilians. We don't, even though we do. And then jumped over to how the left media, same talking points that Pete Hegseth is pushing, the leftist media didn't care about the 30,000 citizens in Iran that were murdered by this regime that didn't like that they were protesting. Except that was talked about. That was reported. In fact, it was reported because your president, John Fetterman, said that he's going to liberate all of them. How much liberation have you seen from those folks? Have you seen him care about them since? Or have you seen him talk about how we're taking oil, we're going to kill more people, we're looking to murder, we're looking to talk about a not so supreme leader? It's all boisterous pushing of their narratives now, and nothing about how that would change. By the way, how are all those citizens going to then take over the country like they say that they want them to, now that it's in complete and utter chaos? And as American soldiers and American bombs are still dropping all over the top of their heads, how does that work out? How does it really work out? Last clip from John Fetterman. This was a fascinating back and forth between him and Caroline Levitt, because I believe she even got a little frustrated by his descriptions of what it is that's being reported. And he didn't like the way that she wrapped this up.
I just think it deserves coverage. Obviously, given the number of children who were killed as a result of it, it obviously matters what happened there. We'll see what the Pentagon investigation says. Senator John Fetterman, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for joining us as always here.
Oh, no, you don't have to cut me off here.
Go ahead, Senator. We're not cutting you off.
Well, you said something that it's like it's appropriate to cover it. It is appropriate to cover it. It's a tragedy. Absolutely. And if we were on that, it's entirely appropriate for it to apologize. If you're implying that I don't think it's wrong to cover it, that's just not true. Yes, it's being covered. I just want to clarify that. It just seemed like a short shut off there to imply that I didn't want to carry that, or I think it's entirely appropriate to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm not implying that. I just wanted to clarify why we're covering it.
I feel like someone's conscience started kicking in a little bit, or maybe he realized how bad he sounded. You guys are acting like I was downplaying this. I feel like we thought you were downplaying it because you said the leftist media doesn't report, or they refuse to report on the 30,000 folks that died, but they'd rather pay attention to the 170 children and staff members that died inside of this school based off of our bombing of it, based off of this president denying that we bombed it, then again doubling down and saying again that somehow Iran bombed their own school right next to the bombs that we dropped on their military facilities. Whatever. Sometimes I get frustrated listening to folks on cable news, and I want to share it because, like I always say, my misery enjoys some company every once in a while. So you guys had to sit through that with me too, because John Fetterman has lost his damn mind. maybe this was the plan the whole time. Who knows? Still though, the plan here is for us to shove off as the end of the week. Hope you guys have as decent of a weekend as possible. Head into it, maybe get a little rest. That is, if you're not forced to work through it. And we'll catch you guys on a Monday. Tell the folks over at TDR that I say, hey, I believe it's a Brett day, isn't it? Right? For those of you that hung around, I appreciate you. I thank you. Come check out the stories that'll be up on the page later on as well. Go ahead, subscribe. Go ahead and like. Go ahead and share those. That'd be lovely. Even get involved with the chat on that as well, too. I believe the water is still warm there. Thank you guys for showing up. We'll see you guys next week on the best damn day of the week. Get a little rest. I'm going to try. We'll see.